Good afternoon. Welcome to the forum here with Sandy Dockendorff this morning. I'm Bob Bartles. I'm a member of the Governmental Affairs Committee for the Chamber, and I'll be asking a series of questions of Sandy. And I think I'll just go right into it here. The very first thing we would do is to have an opening statement, Sandy, where we'd ask you to highlight your reason for running for office. And we'll also do a similar thing at the end of the series of questions where you can have a 2-minute closing statement. So if you would just share with us a little bit about your reason for running for office.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate the opportunity to respond to the concerns of our local business community, and I appreciate the efforts of the Greater Burlington Partnership to always provide public access to candidates and elected officials. I've invested a lot of my life advocating for local access to high-quality health care, full funding, and local control for public education, and equal opportunity for all Iowans. As a nurse, I've worked directly with patients and their families during some of the toughest times in their lives. I've worked for and with community social service agencies and education groups to expand access to health care, mental health services, child care, and full funding of public education in our local communities. I've worked as a budget analyst for the United States government and learned how to read and write a budget and how to see the priorities reflected in a budget. I've run a small business with my husband that provided computer and financial services to other businesses, and I've donated my time and talents to my church, to my local community health center, and to my local school district. I've also spent time urging legislators to see the vision of Iowa that I see, one built on the belief that all people are valued equally, that dignity requires more than just having a job, that wages must allow folks to live in the community where they work and to provide for themselves and their families, that access to healthcare is more than just a slogan, and that public education really is economic development, and that every tax dollar spent should serve the people. I believe that public education should be the vehicle that drives Iowa's economy. I ran for the school board in 2009, and since then, as an elected official, I've worked with people from all points on the political spectrum to strengthen our district's commitment to meeting the needs of our students, insisted on fair treatment of all employees and recognizing our educators as the professionals they are, and providing fair value to our taxpayers. I believe that all these experiences help make me a good representative for all of the people in House District 88, and I want to take those experiences and skills and put them to work for the people of District 88.
We've got a series of questions here. How will you support the expansion and updates of career and technical education systems statewide, especially with the new and updated requirements from the federal Perkins program?
Perkins 5 has been expanded, I think, to 2023. There's a lot of opportunities there for us to work together between public-private partnerships. I worked with the local group when our previous superintendent was still with us. I was really happy to see that they brought it down to the middle school grades. I think one of the best opportunities that we have is if we specialize in our area in meeting the needs of our employers and having a focus on the learning in the workplace. There's an opportunity there for both the employers to learn about how our students are learning, and also how our students can learn to work together in the workplace. I also think that we need to focus on apprenticeships, and we need to make sure that our guidance counselors understand that there are paid apprenticeships in our community for our students to learn and to earn while they're learning. I think all of those things really help. I think the welding program at Danville is very key for our students. It's a wonderful program, and our students are walking out of our building and into good jobs. And I think we need to expand that to other areas of career and technical education.
The state of Iowa started last fiscal year with a $529.3 million surplus with cash, and then emergency reserves totaling $766.9 million. And they've received over $4 billion in COVID-19 stimulus aid from the federal government, CARES Act money. Forecasters like Moody's Analytics have suggested Iowa will face a tax revenue shortfall this fiscal year of $895 million to $1.14 billion. Do you support using most or all of the surplus and cash reserves to cover the revenue shortfall, or finding new revenue sources through increases on existing taxes or implementing new taxes? And then whatever your answer would be, if you could explain why.
I actually don't think that we're going to need to do any of those things. I think that in 2021, the Revenue Estimating Committee seems to think that we're going to be in pretty good shape. And I don't think that the problem is going to really hit until 2022. So for your question in regards to 2021, I think that it's still a wait and see. You never know until all the money's in and the bills are paid. But I think that there's plenty of wiggle room in the budget for us to move forward in building our economy. Having said that, I think that we build the economy in order to make sure that we have the budget revenue that we need. I don't see us cutting the budget in order to make drastic changes. I think that what we really need to be doing is bringing in new businesses, being able to provide a stable workforce, well-trained workforce through public education, and making sure that our dollars are being spent to serve the needs of our people.
State spending on education in fiscal year 2020 was over 55% of the total budget, while spending on human services was over 25%. Governor Reynolds recommended an increase of 2.56% in education funding from fiscal year 20 to fiscal year 21, while also recommending an increase of 3.4% in human services spending for the same period. Considering that education and human services are the top two spending categories for the state of Iowa, do you support the governor's recommended spending increases? If not, what specific legislative proposals would you present to the Senate Appropriations or the House Appropriations Committee to address your concerns?
I appreciate the governor's vision in providing some additional funding for public education and for meeting the needs of our citizens. I think, though, that we keep having this conversation about spending more money for Medicaid and spending more money for Medicaid when we never talk about why that is and how come so many people who are working are still eligible for government benefits. And so I'd like to have us take a look at that. I'd like to see if we could do a minimum wage increase along with those other recommended spending increases, because I think that it is clear that for every dollar increase in wages among low-wage workers, spending on government assistance programs falls for about $5 billion. So I think that that has an impact on not only the federal budget, but in our state budget, and I think it's something that we should look very closely at.
Speaking of Medicaid, do you support Medicaid rate increases to mental health disability service healthcare providers, so that they can cover frontline staff hazard pay, overtime, and PPE costs during this pandemic?
I do. Our frontline healthcare workers are unable to participate in our economy that they work in because their employers can't pay them a marketable wage. So they're leaving the workforce, and we need them more than ever right now. And we need to look at not only paying for those services to keep the providers in place, but also for those frontline workers to get a pay increase. Yes.
In Iowa, most services for persons with intellectual disabilities or mental illness are funded by Medicaid. And within that service sector, there's a growing crisis level shortage of caregiver staff. Would you support a Medicaid rate increase that's targeted to raising the wages of caregiver staff for this service sector? If not, why not?
Yes, I would. And nearly half of all of Iowa's children with special needs are covered by Medicaid. They're not getting the services that they need in their local communities because the providers are not there. A third of all Iowans with a disability receive Medicaid benefits, and a third of all of Iowa's children receive Medicaid benefits. We definitely need to make sure that we are providing a workforce that is able to participate in the economy. And we're not going to have those people available to provide those services if we don't.
Our local law enforcement professionals have repeatedly raised the concern that the penalties for repeated unlawful carry of a firearm are mere slaps on the wrist. Would you support enhancing this penalty under Section 724.4, which is unlawful carrying of a weapon, to a Class D felony for repeat violations, to aid law enforcement in removing illegal weapons from neighborhoods? And then why or why not?
I've had a couple of conversations with sheriffs and sheriff deputies across the Southeast Iowa area. They all would like to see this passed. I think that a graduated penalty makes a lot of sense, and I would support that.
Tourism is an economic driver for Greater Burlington and the state of Iowa. It averages $9 billion annually for the state. How do you grow and sustain the tourism industry for Greater Burlington and then statewide?
I'd say increase the minimum wage, because it would be awesome if our own residents could participate in the tourism in our wonderful state. We have a varied opportunities to have family fun from one part of the state to the other that's different. And I think that it would be great if we could make it possible for more families to participate in that in their own state. That would be my first place to start.
So we've gone through those questions in remarkable time, Sandy. So now we'd be asking for a closing statement.
Again, I want to thank everyone who worked to put this forum together. I really appreciate the opportunity. I wanted to talk a little bit about where I came from. My husband and I moved our young family to Iowa in 1992. That was the beginning of the flood season. For my husband, it was a return to his rural Southeast Iowa roots. And for me, it was a happy transplanting to land and a community that I have since learned to love. For our children, it was creating a home for them in a community where they already had family and roots, and to where they could learn the basic truths of rural life, where their food comes from, the value of hard work, the importance of community, and to value the land. Since moving here, I've been working for the people in my community and for the folks in the neighboring counties too. I spent a lot of time talking to legislators about things I felt needed to be done, only to see them vote in ways that made it harder for many Iowans to succeed. I've gone to the forums, I've asked the questions, I've challenged the answers, and I've gone to the Capitol to do the same. I've joined groups to listen and to learn as folks express their ideas on how to solve the problems we face. And I have talked to thousands of people across the state from every political point of view. And now I think I need to take the next step. And with your help, with the help of the people who are watching this, I'm going to take my vision of a fair and balanced Iowa economy directly to the Iowa legislatures. We can work together to solve problems that families are facing, and we can find solutions that don't pit one business against another to build a stronger economy. We can solve the healthcare crisis if we work together. This is an important election. We have an opportunity to rebuild our economy better than it was before, and without leaving anybody behind. We have a lot of work to do. It's going to take a lot of effort to recover from the multiple setbacks of 2020. I've never seen a year like this with as many setbacks as we've had. But we can do so much when we work together. That is sort of what Iowans do when they're get knocked down. They stand back up and they pick up the people around them. And that's what I want to do. I want to help. Best regards to all of you.
I'd like to express appreciation to you, Sandy, for being willing to serve in our citizen legislature. And I'd also like to thank those in the audience who listens to these questions and your answers for their interest in the election process. And this concludes our interview.